here is 50 for 50 vlogs. Watery mouth and lambs is number 2, and again, thanks to Netix for supporting this and making it happen. So what is watery mouth and lambs? It's a disease that affects lambs between 1 to 3 days of age, and a lot of farmers will be very aware of this. Any sheep farmer will know about it. I suppose what causes it? Everyone knows about the bacteria E. coli, and there's loads of subtypes and strains of it, but there are certain ones that are what we call pathogenic, and what they do is they cause this toxic shock or endotoxemia. And the reason lambs are susceptible is the newborn lambs, the pH of the stomach is very neutral, meaning that and it has to be to help that colostrum absorption, and that's really key to it. Colostrum is key to this, but it also means that E. coli can grow in quite numbers, and E. coli is anywhere there's dung. SH1T, anywhere there's dung. So if we can limit dung down and maximize immunity, remember all these diseases, I keep saying it, we want to maximize immunity and reduce down infection pressure. They're the 2 things we always need to think about. And when I put any simple plans together, I always go back to those principles. You know, what are the clinical signs? Again, the mouth might be a little bit wet, and that's why the muzzle might be wet. The lambs get cold, their belly will be distended because the stomach's not really moving. It stops moving with toxic shock, and if you get these lambs, you'll hear that rattly belly. The meconium in the bum, that's the plug in the bum when the lamb is inside in the uterus, that won't be passed out, and that's very important. A lot of ruminant animals and foals, that meconium is passed and the gut starts moving. They'll obviously get cold from the shock, their appetite drops, and it gets very quick. They get depressed and they can be down. So they can be difficult to treat. We always want to think about prevention when we think about watery mouth. Just very quickly on treatments, it's a shock, so anytime you have shock you need fluids. There's a hypoglycemia, glucose goes down, so I always found oral fluids with glucose or dextrose to work well. Your vet can talk to you about antibiotics. These lambs need heat. Sometimes if the meconium or that plug in the bum isn't passed, just a soapy lukewarm water enema with washing up liquid or something like that to help that pass out. And if you can get the gut moving, that helps. So they're sort of simple treatments. Treatment really is about spotting them early, doing it, taking action quite early. If I look at watery mouth, I just have to go back to colostrum and lambs. It's so essential. So when we talk about colostrum, it's the first milk obviously from the ewe. The quantity of it's really important for lambs, about 60 mils per kilo. Really important for gut lubrication, for energy and protein, really, really critical. The lamb will have brown fat, which you'll use for energy, but colostrum is really key. And immunity, so the lamb is born immunonaive, and there's immunoglobulins that are there. So if I just want to think about colostrum, and particularly I do a lot of work with colostrum in calves, but colostrum in the gut, if you look at the gut, is like a lumen, like a circular shape, but even down at a cellular level, there's all these little fingers to aid absorption. If it's E. coli that gets in there first, it really affects colostrum absorption, and really they multiply. So colostrum is absolutely key. Lubrication, energy, immunity, satiety, keeping the lamb full. That's really important to get that first feed in. And there's all sorts of other elements. A lot of research has been done in calves on this, and these oligosaccharides and all these things that they reckon these young gut cells and villi aren't fully developed. I think it's going to be similar for lambs. So colostrum is absolutely key. If you can get colostrum into lambs, it's the best way of managing it. So that's when I think about control programs for watery mouth. Ewe feeding, getting the high quality energy and protein into ewes before lambing, that improves colostrum quality. That colostrum starts brewing in the ewes about 7 to 10 days out from lambing. Triplets are always a risk. So if you scan and you have triplets, they need more attention. The ewe's going to have a bigger job to feed all of them, and that's why we cross foster lambs, and triplets just need that special attention. If you look at colostrum replacers, and Netix do a lot of good colostrum replacers, they should never be used as a complete substitute for colostrum. They can be used to top up lambs and provide energy and some antibodies, but really we need to focus on, in our control strategies, good quality colostrum, and then use replacers where we need to. You can use cow colostrum on lambs as well, but really making sure that the triplets and the weaker small lambs get colostrum. Hygiene is absolutely critical. If we think this is an SH1T bug, it's anything we can do to reduce down fecal I suppose levels, moisture as well, moisture, damp, wet conditions allows the multiplication of these E. coli. So pens or hands, even with newborn lambs, you'll often put our hand into a newborn lamb's mouth to help it get it sucking. Just be very careful from a point of view of joint ill and a lot of diseases in lambs actually. That's, be careful. So wearing gloves. Others of use, so that if you think about the yolk, when a lamb gets up to go and suckle, it nuzzles along the belly. It won't go straight like a laser onto the teat. It has to muzzle around the udder and bucking to get there. So if you think about that, if we can keep the yolk as clean as possible pre-lambing, that's really important. Now, control programs, traditionally a lot of farms might have used oral antibiotics to all lambs. And one thing for sure, I'm sure we're in the middle of coronavirus crisis, One Health will become so important post this. There'll be so much more focus, and rightly so. And one of the things we talk about in One Health is the reduction of antibiotics in our farm animal systems. It can be done, and particularly prophylactic antibiotics. So any farmer using oral antibiotics as a prophylactic measure to control watery mouth needs to look at just what we can do to reduce this down. Oral antibiotics can play a role, but we're looking to reduce down our usage. Again, it's something you talk with your own vet, but having a plan. So hygiene is really, really important. The H for hygiene. 3 elements to the H, and that is for me fresh air, straw, and drainage to keep that environment and lambing pens clean and dry. Really, really, really helpful. And then if you maximize colostrum and do that systematically, those 2 things, the big C and the big H, that's key to controlling E. coli watery mouth. Okay, so that's watery mouth. Every day I said I'd do an animal health blog, and I'd leave farmers with a little bit of a message. I think, look, what's happening at the moment is, it's frightening for a lot of people. Farming is continuing. It's just showing how important food production is. But I think, it's not about singing from the rooftops. It's about everyone knuckling down, keep doing what you're doing. And this idea of self-isolation is really important, especially for people in our food production systems. They don't get sick because you're vital at all levels of food supply, but the producers particularly. But self-isolation brings challenges because farming can be isolating as it is. So don't forget to pick up the phone. Don't forget to visit that neighbour who's on their own. This is a community thing. If we can all do this together, we'll be a lot better. So self-isolation is important. I think it's that distancing is probably more important. Isolation is a bad word, especially when it comes to farming. So stay safe, everybody. As I said, I'm available for emails and suggestions of other topics people would like to cover. And if the email is open as well. I won't be doing much on social media, but the email is open if anyone has any queries about any of the topics or issues that I cover on these blogs. Okay, happy safe farming, everybody.